My name is Emma Caldwell, and I was 10 years old the summer I learned that love was something you had to earn in my house, and that even when you earned it, there was no guarantee it would show up. That July, just 3 days after my birthday, my parents sat me down in the living room and explained very calmly, the way adults explain things they have already decided, that they would be spending 6 weeks in Italy. They said it the way you might announce a grocery run. Easy.
Light.
Like it required nothing from me except to nod and say okay. So I nodded. I said okay. And then I watched my mother walk upstairs to finish packing her third suitcase, and I stood there in the middle of our living room, not quite sure what I had just agreed to. I need to tell you something before I go any further. I need to tell you about the 60 people at that welcome home barbecue, about the police car that pulled up to our driveway while my father was handing out drinks, about the moment my mother turned around with a paper plate in her hand and saw a social worker she had never met standing on our lawn. I need to tell you about the look on her face when she realized that everything she had spent years building, her image, her reputation, her perfectly curated version of our family, was about to come apart in front of everyone she had ever wanted to impress. But first, let me take you back to the beginning. Let me take you back to that living room and that nod and that single word.
Okay.
The Caldwell family lived in a 2-story house in a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. We had a wraparound porch with a porch swing my father had built the summer before I was born and never used again. We had a golden retriever named Biscuit, who was getting old. We had a kitchen with granite countertops and a refrigerator covered in magnets from places my parents had visited without me. Niagara Falls.
Key West.
New Orleans. Little rectangular souvenirs from a life I was not part of. My mother, Renata Caldwell, was the kind of woman who made everything look beautiful from the outside. She ran a small event planning business and she was good at it. She knew how to arrange flowers and set tables and choose lighting that made every room look like something out of a magazine. She had nearly 8,000 followers on her social media accounts. She posted photos of our house, our meals, Biscuit in the yard. She used words like cozy and grateful and blessed. When she posted photos with me in them, which was rare, she always cropped them at the shoulder. You could see my hair. You could not see my face. My father, Dennis Caldwell, worked in logistics for a shipping company. He left early and came home tired. He was not a cruel man. He was an absent one. He agreed with whatever my mother said, not because he thought she was right, but because disagreeing took energy he did not have. He once forgot my name at a school pickup and called me sweetheart 3 times before my teacher gently reminded him. He laughed. I laughed too. I had learned very young that making adults comfortable was my job. I had been taking care of myself since I was 7, making my own breakfast, walking to school when the carpool fell through, setting my own alarm, because no one else would. I did my homework at the kitchen table while my parents watched television in the other room. I signed my own permission slips when my mother forgot. I learned to be small. I learned that needing things from my parents was an inconvenience to them, and that if I kept my needs quiet enough, they might eventually love me the way parents were supposed to. The trip was to Italy. Florence, the Amalfi Coast, Venice, and Rome. My mother had been planning it for 8 months. There was a whole folder on her laptop. Hotels, restaurants, day trips, train schedules. She knew which restaurants required reservations 3 weeks in advance. She did not know what grade I was going into. 2 weeks before they left, she called me downstairs. She was at the kitchen table with the folder open in front of her. My father was standing by the window drinking a glass of water, looking at nothing in particular. Emma, she said, your father and I have worked very hard, and we deserve a real vacation. You are 10 years old. You are perfectly capable of managing for a few weeks. I stood in the doorway.
6 weeks, I said.
How long is 6 weeks? She waved her hand like the number was a technicality. You will be fine. We are not going to the moon. There are groceries in the freezer. I blinked.
Who will stay with me?
She picked up a pen and made a mark on something in the folder. Mrs. Hensley from the end of the block said she would check in. I want to stay with Grandma Carol, I said. My paternal grandmother lived 2 hours away. She was warm and funny, and she always knew where I was. Grandma Carol is busy, my mother said. She has her garden club and her book group. I do not want to impose. I looked at my father. He looked at the window. I looked back at my mother. What if something happens? I said. Emma, she said, and her voice had that flat tone, the one that meant the conversation was already over. Nothing is going to happen. Stop being anxious. You get that from your father. 2 days before they left, she put 3 things on the kitchen counter. A small stack of $20 bills. $80 in total. A green prepaid card in a paper sleeve. And a typed sheet of paper with the name and number of Mrs. Hensley written at the top and a list of instructions below. Lock the doors at night. Do not open the door for strangers. Eat what is in the freezer. The card is for real emergencies only. She tapped the card with one finger. Real emergencies. Not boredom. Not takeout.
You understand.
I nodded. She folded the paper and walked away. I looked at the card in its paper sleeve. I did not know yet that it had never been loaded. I would not find that out until 3 days after they were gone. The morning they left, I stood at the top of the stairs and watched them carry suitcases to the car. Beautiful luggage. Brown leather with gold hardware. My mother wore white linen and sunglasses. My father wore a blue shirt I had never seen before. They looked like people in a commercial. They looked like strangers who happened to live in my house. My mother paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked up at me. Be good, she said. I will, I said. She went through the front door. My father followed. Neither of them hugged me. The door clicked shut, and I stood at the top of the stairs for a long time listening to the car back out of the driveway. That night the house was so quiet I could hear Biscuit breathing in the corner of my room. I lay on top of my covers with all the lights on and stared at the ceiling until past midnight.
I was not scared exactly.
I did not have a word for what I was. I was just very aware of how large the house was and how small I was inside it. The next morning I opened the refrigerator. There was a bag of frozen peas, half a box of waffles, 2 yogurts with a sell-by date that had already passed, a block of cheese, some condiments, and a nearly empty jug of orange juice. In the pantry there were 2 cans of soup, a box of crackers, some pasta, a jar of tomato sauce, and a bag of rice. I counted my money.
$80.
I divided it in my head. 6 weeks is 42 days. $80 divided by 42 is about $1.90 a day. I tried the prepaid card on the 3rd day. I tried to order something simple from the grocery delivery app on my mother's old tablet. The card was declined. I tried again. Declined. I called the number on the back of the card sleeve. I followed the automated prompts for 5 minutes. The card has not been activated. Please contact the issuing party to activate this card. I set the phone down and looked at the $80 on the counter. That was everything. My parents were somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, and that was all I had. I called my mother. It rang 4 times. Then her voicemail. I called again. This time she picked up. There was background noise. Music. Voices. Emma, she said, I am at dinner. What is it? Mom, the card does not work, I said. I cannot use it. She made a sound. A small, impatient exhale. There's food in the house. Yes, but the card does not work, and I might need. Emma, she said, you have $80. That is more than enough.
Stop calling me about this.
I could hear my father saying something in the background. I heard my mother laugh at whatever it was. I will check in with you this weekend.
Click.
I stood in the kitchen with the phone in my hand. Then I put it down, picked up the stack of 20s, and walked to the grocery store. It was 4 blocks away. I had a canvas bag. I stood in the aisle for a long time looking at prices. Crackers, peanut butter, oatmeal,
Ramen, bread,
apples that were 2 for $1. I bought what I could carry and got home with $51 left and a plan that felt very fragile. I rationed 1 packet of oatmeal in the morning, peanut butter on crackers for lunch, ramen or pasta for dinner. I stretched things as far as they would go. By the end of the first week, I was eating twice a day instead of 3 times. By the end of the second week, I was eating once a day and going to bed early because sleeping helped with the hunger. I was losing weight. I could feel it. My clothes were starting to feel loose. Biscuit pressed his warm old body against my legs at night, and I was grateful for him in a way I had never thought about before. On day 8, I opened my mother's social media account on the tablet. She had posted 4 times since leaving. A photo of the hotel room in Florence, all high ceilings and marble and white linens. A photo of a long table at an outdoor restaurant, glasses of wine, and a sunset behind it. A photo of her feet in sandals on the Amalfi coast with blue water below, and the caption, "Living for this." A photo of her and my father in a gondola in Venice, laughing at something, looking like the happiest 2 people in the world. I scrolled through the comments. She looked stunning. They deserved it. Goals. She replied to every single one with a heart or a thank you or an emoji. I turned the tablet camera to face me. I pressed record. Today is day 8, I said. I ate peanut butter crackers for breakfast and lunch, and I have half a pack of ramen left for tonight. The card never worked. I have $43. My mom posted a photo from Venice. She looked really happy. I turned the camera toward the refrigerator, opened it, showed the inside. Almost nothing. A few apples. The orange juice. I turned it back to me. I do not know why I am recording this. Maybe because if I say it out loud it becomes real. Maybe because I want someone to know what is actually happening even if no one sees this. I pressed stop. I kept recording. Every day a new video. I filmed the empty shelves. I filmed the scale in my parents' bathroom as the number went down. I filmed myself reading the short clipped texts my mother sent when she did send anything. Everything fine. Hope you are being responsible. We are in Rome tomorrow. I filmed myself looking straight into the camera and saying the date, what I had eaten, and what she had posted that day. I kept a notebook too. A green spiral notebook from my desk drawer. I wrote down every meal, every dollar I spent, every communication from my parents, or lack of it. I did not know what I was doing exactly. I just knew that something in me wanted a record. Something in me understood that someday the truth might need proof. On day 11, my neighbor knocked on the door. His name was Mr. Beaumont. He was 73 years old, and he lived alone in the yellow house directly across the street. He grew tomatoes in the summer and left bags of them on neighbors' porches. He had always waved at me from across the street. We had never really spoken. I opened the door and stood there in the clothes I had been wearing for 3 days because I did not know how to run the washing machine. He looked at me for a moment with the kind of attention adults rarely give children. "You look thin, sweetheart," he said. "You okay?" "I am fine," I said. He looked at biscuit pressing against my legs. "Your folks home?" "No, sir," I said. "Business trip?" He was quiet. "Long trip?" "Yes, sir." He scratched the back of his neck. "Tell you what," he said. "I made a pot of chili this morning, and I cannot eat the whole thing myself. You want to come over?" My mother's voice in my head. "Do not bother anyone." But I was so hungry my hands were shaking. "Yes, please," I said. I sat at Mr. Beaumont's kitchen table and ate 2 bowls of chili with cornbread and drank 2 glasses of milk. He sat across from me and watched me eat with that same careful attention. He did not ask questions until the second bowl. "How long have they been gone?" he asked. 11 days, I said. "How long are they gone for?"
6 weeks total, I said.
He was quiet for a while. "Who is checking on you?" He nodded. "Mrs. Hensley from the end of the block," I said. "She was supposed to check in."
"Has she?"
"No, sir." He folded his hands on the table.
"Emma," he said.
"Do you have enough food?" I looked at the empty bowl in front of me. "I have been managing," I said. "That is not what I asked." I looked up at him. "Not always," I said quietly. Mr. Beaumont did not call anyone that night. But the next morning there was a paper bag on our front porch. Bread, peanut butter, bananas, soup cans, oatmeal, apples, a block of cheese. No note. I brought it inside and stood in the kitchen holding the bag and did not cry, but I came very close. Mr. Beaumont left a bag on the porch every 2 days after that. He never made a big thing of it. He just left it there. When I saw him across the street, I waved, and he waved back. Once he said, "You eating okay?" "Yes, sir," I said. "Good," he said.
"Good."
Week 2. Summer enrichment program started. My mother had signed me up months before. Art and reading and a little bit of science. She had signed me up not because she thought I would enjoy it, and I did enjoy it, but because she wanted somewhere for me to be so that the neighbors would not wonder why I was home all day. I understood that now. I arrived the first day in wrinkled clothes. My hair was tangled because I had not figured out how to do it without help, and I was too proud to ask Mr. Beaumont. I had dark circles under my eyes. My shoes were untied because I had forgotten how to care about small things. My teacher, Miss Clara Whitfield, noticed immediately. She was in her early 50s. She had short gray-streak hair and glasses, and a way of looking at you that made you feel like she was reading something very precise. She did not say anything the first day. She just kept watching. On day 3, during afternoon reading time, I fell asleep at my desk. Not dozing. Fully asleep. When she woke me gently, my first thought was to apologize. My second thought was that I could not remember the last time I had slept through a full night. Ms. Whitfield knelt beside my desk so that her face was level with mine. "Emma," she said very quietly, "when did you last eat today?" "This morning," I said. "What did you eat?" "An apple," I said. "That was 7 hours ago." She stood up and went to her desk and came back with a granola bar and a small carton of juice. "Eat this, please," she said. I ate it in about 45 seconds. At the end of that day, she asked me to stay behind. She sat across from me at one of the art tables. "Emma," she said, "I want you to know that you can trust me. I have been a teacher for 27 years and I know when something is not right." She paused. "Is something not right?" I had been practicing my answer for days. "We have a babysitter who checks in." "She was supposed to," I said, but that sentence just trailed off into nothing because I could not make myself finish the lie. "Yes." Whitfield waited. I looked at my hands. "My parents are in Italy," I said. "For 6 weeks. I have been by myself." She did not react with shock. She just nodded very slowly, like she had already suspected, and this was confirmation. "How long?" she said. 19 days, I said. She wrote something in the small notebook she always carried. "Emma," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Are you safe?" I thought about that word. "I am not in danger," I said. "But I am not okay." That night my mother called, not to check on me, because the program had left a message on her phone asking her to update the emergency contact form. She called with an edge in her voice before she even said hello. "What did you tell them?" she said. "Nothing," I said. "They said you mentioned being home alone." "I did not." "Emma," her voice dropped to that flat, cold register. "I am in Rome. Do you understand that? We are at dinner. We have reservations at a restaurant that takes 2 months to get into. And I am on the phone with you because you cannot keep your mouth shut." "I am sorry," I said. "You will apologize when I get home," she said. "Until then, I need you to stop making things difficult. You have everything you need. The babysitter checks in." "Yes, she does. Do not make me have to deal with this from here." Click. I opened the tablet. I pressed record. "Today is day 19, I said. "Mom just called from Rome. She said to stop making things difficult." I showed the camera my notebook. Every meal for 19 days written down. I am down 11 pounds. My teacher noticed today. "I think things are going to change." I pressed stop. Then I opened my mother's account. New photo. Her and my father at a Camelot restaurant. Crystal glasses. Beautiful plated food. Flowers on the table.
Caption: La dolce vita.
The sweet life. I counted the comments. 67. All of them admiring. None of them knowing. The next morning Ms. Whitfield asked the school nurse to see me. Her name was Mrs. Adora. She was a calm woman with steady hands who did not make a big production of anything. She weighed me. She looked at the number. She asked me quiet, careful questions. She looked in my eyes the way nurses do. Then she sat back and said, "Emma, you have lost approximately 12 pounds since your last recorded weight here from last spring." I nodded. "I know," I said. She folded her hands. "Your parents are traveling." "Yes, ma'am." "And there has been no adult supervising you at home?" "Not really," I said. "No, ma'am." She nodded once. Then she picked up her phone. "I want you to know," she said, "that what I am about to do is required by my job, and also something I believe in. I am going to file a report." I swallowed. "Will my mother find out?" "Eventually, yes," she said. "But right now the most important thing is that you are safe." I nodded.
Okay, I said.
Okay. Mrs. Adora was a mandatory reporter. Her report went to Tennessee Child Protective Services within the hour. A case was opened. A caseworker was assigned. Her name was Priya Mehta. While all of that was being set in motion, my mother was in Rome, and my father was eating something that probably cost more than my monthly food budget, and Biscuit was at home waiting for me by the front door. That afternoon, another email from my mother. I had not sent one first. Someone clearly tipped her off. Perhaps a call from the program director. Perhaps something the nurse had said. The email had no subject line. Emma, I am hearing things from people I should not be hearing things from. If you have talked to anyone about our family or about this trip, you need to stop immediately. You do not understand what is at stake here. Our reputation matters. My business matters. If I come home to a mess that you created, I will not be forgiving about it. I am warning you now. This is your only warning. I read the email twice. Then I opened the tablet and pressed record. Today is day 21, I said. My mom sent an email threatening me for telling the truth. I am going to read it now. I read the entire email aloud, word by word, directly into the camera. Then I said, I am not making things up. I am not being dramatic. I am 10 years old and I have been alone for 3 weeks and I am losing weight and my clothes do not fit right and I have been scared every single night. And I am not going to stop telling the truth because she does not like it. I pressed stop. My hands were completely steady. Priya Mehta came to the house on day 23. She was a woman in her mid-30s with calm dark eyes and a brown leather bag and the kind of manner that made you feel like she had seen a lot of things and none of them could surprise her anymore. She knocked at 11 in the morning. I answered the door. She showed me her identification and said, Emma, I am Priya and I am from Child Protective Services. May I come in? Yes, I said. She stepped inside and looked around the way people look when they are assessing something carefully. She looked at the living room, the kitchen, the silence. She asked if she could see what was in the refrigerator. I took her to the kitchen. She opened it. Almost empty. Some apples. A container of yogurt. The tail end of a block of cheese. She looked at the pantry. Very little left. She looked at me. Emma, she said, is there anything you would like to show me or tell me? I went in my room and came back with the green notebook and the tablet. I have been keeping a record, I said. I have videos. She took the tablet. She pressed play on one of the earlier recordings. Day 8. The empty refrigerator. My face in the camera. My voice, thin and steady, saying the date and what I had eaten. When it ended, she looked at me for a moment with an expression I did not quite know how to read. Then she said, Emma, you are very brave. These are important. This was a good thing to do. I looked at the floor. Will my mom be in trouble? I asked. Priya was quiet for a moment. I think what matters most right now is that you are safe and cared for, she said. That is our job. Can you tell me more about Mrs. Hensley? She was supposed to check in, I said.
Has she come?
No, I said. Not once. Priya called my mother that afternoon. She told me later what happened. Mrs. Caldwell, my name is Priya Mehta and I am a caseworker with Tennessee CPS. We have received a report regarding your daughter, Emma. A pause. Then my mother's voice, smooth and warm, transforming instantly into the voice she used for clients and guests and anyone whose opinion mattered to her. Oh goodness, is Emma all right? What happened? We have concerns about Emma being unsupervised for an extended period, Priya said. I want to clarify the arrangements that are in place. My mother did not miss a beat.
Of course, she said.
We have a neighbor, Mrs. Hensley, who checks in every day. Lovely woman. Emma adores her. Priya wrote something down. Could you provide Mrs. Hensley's contact information? A pause. Let me pull it up. I will text it to you. She never sent it. Priya checked with 3 different databases and knocked on Mrs. Hensley's door herself. Mrs. Hensley was a real person. She had been asked weeks ago to check in on me. She had forgotten entirely and felt terrible about it and had not actually visited once. Priya filed a formal petition. The court issued a subpoena for my parents' credit card and banking records. 3 days later, the bank sent the documents. Priya sat me down at Mr. Beaumont's kitchen table because I had been moved there temporarily while the investigation continued, and she opened the folder. Emma, she said carefully, I want to share something with you. Your parents spent $61,000 during their 6 weeks away. Hotels, restaurants, excursions, shopping. She slid a printed page across the table. The numbers were in columns. Charges from Florence, the Amalfi Coast, Venice, Rome. A handbag and a luxury shop in Milan. Dinners that cost hundreds of dollars each. The prepaid card they gave you, Priya continued, was never loaded. Not a single cent was ever put on it. It could not have worked regardless of what you tried. I stared at the page. They spent $61,000, I said slowly. Yes, she said. And they left me with $80, I said. Yes, she said. I sat with that for a long time. The $80. The crackers. The scale in the bathroom going down. Biscuit pressed against my legs every night. The green notebook with every meal written in pencil. Priya closed the folder. What happens now? I asked. Priya looked at me steadily. When your parents come home, she said, there will be consequences. They will be taken into custody. There will be a hearing. And you will not be returning to that house.
Not yet.
Not until a judge decides what is right for you. I nodded. Is there family? She asked. Who do you trust? I thought for a moment. My grandma Carol, I said. She would come. I know she would come. My mother called me from Rome the night before they were supposed to fly home. She had heard, through some chain of messages, that things were serious.
Her voice was different now.
Still cold, but underneath the cold there was something new. Something that sounded, for the first time in my life, like fear. Sydney, she said, using the wrong name and then correcting herself. Emma. Emma, listen to me. Whatever you told them, you need to tell them you exaggerated. You were lonely, and you wanted attention, and you exaggerated. That is all. I was quiet on the other end.
Emma.
I am your mother. Do you understand what happens to families when children make accusations?
Emma.
I held the phone and thought about the scale, thought about the crackers, thought about falling asleep at my desk, thought about Mr. Beaumont leaving grocery bags on the porch without saying a word. I have videos, I said.
Mom.
Silence. 23 videos.
And a notebook.
And my teacher. And the nurse. And Mrs. Adeora's report. And your emails. I read them aloud on camera. All of them. Silence on the other end. You cannot do this, she finally said. Her voice had cracked, just slightly, just enough. I am not doing anything, I said. The truth is just already done. She hung up. I sat in Mr. Beaumont's kitchen with biscuit at my feet. Grandma Carol was on her way. She had driven 2 hours without hesitation when Priya called. She was sleeping in Mr. Beaumont's spare room. I could hear her in there, moving around, and the sound of someone else in the house, someone who knew my name and had come for me, was the strangest and most overwhelming comfort I had ever felt. They came home on a Saturday. My mother had planned a welcome-home barbecue for the following afternoon. Sunday. She had sent the invitations from Italy. 60 people. Neighbors, colleagues, her book club, her clients, her social media friends who had followed along on the whole trip and wanted to hear the stories in person. There was going to be a projector set up on the back deck, showing a slideshow of their trip photos. There was going to be catered food. My mother had hired a company. She had not been home in 6 weeks, but she had arranged a caterer from overseas. She did not know that Priya had been monitoring their travel itinerary. She did not know that 2 police officers, Officer Danielle Reyes and Officer Marcus Webb, would be arriving at the barbecue with a warrant for their arrest. She did not know that Ms. Whitfield had agreed to be present as a witness and that Mrs. Adeora had submitted her formal medical documentation to the court 3 days earlier. She did not know any of that. She only knew about the barbecue. She was probably already thinking about what to wear. I watched from Mr. Beaumont's living room window. His house had a clear sight line to ours. The catering van arrived at 10 in the morning. By noon the backyard was being set up. Tables with white cloths. A small projector screen. String lights. Flowers. My mother came out of the house at 1 to supervise. She was wearing a pale yellow dress, and she looked rested and tan, and entirely comfortable. She laughed at something the caterer said. She walked around the yard adjusting things. She looked at home in her world. She looked like nothing in the universe could touch her. Guests started arriving at 3. Cars lined our street. People came through the gate laughing, hugging my mother, squeezing my father's arm. I could hear the sounds, music and voices, and the clink of glasses. I could see the slideshow beginning on the projector screen. Italy in golden light, turquoise water, cobblestone streets. My parents looking radiant and free.
Someone asked about me.
I could not hear it, but I saw my mother gesture toward the house and say something dismissive.
She's resting.
You know how kids are. She smiled and moved on to the next guest. She did not know I was 40 feet away in Mr. Beaumont's window with Grandma Carol's hand on my shoulder. At 4:15, 2 cars pulled up. Priya's gray sedan and a police cruiser. Priya got out first in her blazer with the folder under her arm. Officer Reyes and Officer Webb got out behind her in full uniform.
They walked up the driveway.
Priya rang the front doorbell. After a moment, my mother opened the front door. She had a glass in her hand and a smile already forming, and then the smile froze. Mrs. Caldwell, Priya said. I am Priya Mehta with Tennessee Child Protective Services. These are Officers Reyes and Webb. We need to speak with you and your husband. My mother looked at Priya. She looked at the officers. She looked past them at the police car on the street. Then she arranged her face and said, I am so sorry. Now is not a great time. We have guests. Perhaps tomorrow. Officer Reyes spoke. Mrs. Caldwell, we have a warrant. You and your husband are being charged under Tennessee Code Annotated 39-15-401, aggravated child neglect. My mother took one small step backward. The sound from the backyard had gone quiet. Someone had turned down the music. Faces appeared at the side gate. 30, 40 people in party clothes holding plates and glasses, watching the front door. The slideshow was still running on the projector screen behind them. Florence, the Amalfi coast, a gondola in Venice. My mother turned toward the backyard. Her voice went up, not quite a shout, but close. Priya stepped forward.
Emma is not inside, she said.
Emma has been in protective custody for 8 days. She is currently with her paternal grandmother. My mother's face went through something I could see even from across the street. Priya opened the folder. We have a detailed video diary recorded by Emma. 23 videos. We have medical documentation from her school. We have her personal journal recording every meal she consumed over 42 days. And we have the financial records obtained through legal subpoena showing that you spent $61,000 during your trip while leaving your daughter with $80 cash and a prepaid card that was never loaded. She paused. A card that could not have worked, that you knew could not have worked. The yard was completely silent. 60 people in white tablecloth party clothes standing in the warm afternoon light, holding their drinks, watching. A woman near the back said something to the person next to her. A man I recognized as one of my father's coworkers took a step forward and then stopped. My father had gone white. He was standing near the gate, and he had not moved since Priya arrived, and he did not speak now. He just stood there, hands at his sides, watching everything. My mother made one more attempt. She looked at the guests with something desperate in her eyes. You all know me, she said. You know our family. You know how much I love Emma. It is completely overblown. She was fine. She had food. She had support. My neighbor. She turned and looked for Mrs. Hensley in the crowd. Mrs. Hensley was there. She had been invited. She stood near the back with her arms crossed and her face turned slightly away. She did not defend my mother. No one did. Officer Reyes spoke again. We would like to show the guests something if you will allow it, she said. She nodded to a small device in Officer Webb's hand. He connected it to the projector. The slideshow of Italy disappeared. My face filled the screen. My voice came out of the speaker, thin and steady. Today is day 8. I ate peanut butter crackers for breakfast and lunch. I have half a pack of ramen left for tonight. The card never worked. I have $43. My mom posted a photo from Venice. She looked really happy. On screen, my 10-year-old hand turned the camera to the refrigerator and opened the door. The inside was nearly empty. A few apples. The orange juice. The silence in that backyard was absolute. Another video. Day 15. I have $20 left. I have not told anyone because Mom said to keep quiet. Biscuit ate his last can of dog food this morning. I gave him some of my crackers. He is old, and he needs more than crackers. My voice cracked on the last word. I steadied it. I am okay, the video me said, looking directly into the camera. I just need someone to know this is real. In the backyard, the woman in the blue dress covered her mouth with her hand. The man from my father's office put his glass down on the nearest table very slowly and carefully. Someone near the back started crying. My mother was not looking at the screen. She was looking at the guests, watching their faces change. Watching every opinion she had ever cultivated, every impression she had ever managed, every performance she had ever given in that neighborhood and that community and on those social media accounts, crumbling in real time in front of her eyes. Priya spoke again. Mrs. Caldwell, she said. Sir, you need to come with us. My mother turned back to Priya. Her voice had lost its certainty now. It was just sound. Just noise. This is not what it looks like, she said. Priya said nothing. She just stood and waited. Officer Reyes moved forward, and my mother stopped talking. My father spoke for the first time. He said Renata. Just that. Her name. Like a period at the end of a very long sentence. She looked at him. He looked at his shoes. My mother's shoulders dropped about an inch. And that was it. That was the moment. Everything that had held itself up for so long just let go. They walked my parents through the front yard in handcuffs. Not a dramatic scene. Just a quiet walk down a driveway, while 60 people watched in silence. My mother kept her chin up. My father kept his eyes down. Their neighbors stood on the sidewalk. The Nguyen's from next door. The Petrov family from the corner. The family with the twin toddlers who always waved. All of them watching. None of them moving to help. Because the truth, once it is visible, does not leave much room for loyalty to the person it exposes. The police car doors closed. The cars pulled away. The caterer quietly began wrapping up the food. Guests left without saying goodbye to anyone, just walking to their cars in small clusters, speaking in low voices, not looking at each other directly. The projector screens still glowed faintly in the late afternoon light. The slideshow had been turned off, but the light was still on, a white rectangle on the back deck wall, illuminating nothing. Grandma Carol came to get me at 5 o'clock. She knocked on Mr. Beaumont's door, and I walked out with Biscuit on his leash and my green notebook under my arm. Mr. Beaumont stood in the doorway. You take care of yourself, kiddo, he said. You too, I said. He nodded. That was enough. Grandma Carol did not say much on the drive to her house. She held my hand at red lights. At one point she said, You did everything right, baby. Everything right. I looked out the window. The Nashville suburbs gave way to highway, gave way to smaller roads. 23 video recordings with timestamps. A written journal covering 42 days. Medical documentation showing significant weight loss and malnutrition. Email Hensley as evidence of a good faith arrangement that simply fell through. But Mrs. Hensley had submitted a statement of her own by then. She had not visited once. She had forgotten entirely, and she was sorry, and she was saying so on the record. You cannot reason with timestamps. You cannot reframe a scale that went down 12 pounds. You cannot explain a card that was never loaded. The story spread through the area quickly. A headline in the local news. Parents spent $61,000 in Italy, left 10-year-old at home for 6 weeks. My mother's business page was deleted by the company that had been her biggest client. My father was placed on leave pending review. Their names were associated with something real now, something that no Instagram caption could soften. 6 months after the arrest, they accepted a plea arrangement. 2 years of probation. 150 hours of community service. A permanent felony record under the statute of child neglect. And a ruling from the judge that I will never forget, even though I was not in the courtroom to hear it. Grandma Carol was there. She told me afterward, word by word, sitting at the kitchen table with tea. The judge said that parental responsibility is not suspended by distance or inconvenience. She said that leaving a 10-year-old child for 6 weeks with no functioning means of support, no adequate supervision, and no meaningful communication constitutes a profound failure of care. She said that the child in this case demonstrated remarkable resilience and presence of mind in documenting her situation, and that the court would not minimize what she endured. She terminated my parents' legal guardianship. Grandma Carol was granted permanent legal guardianship the same afternoon. I was officially hers. Grandma Carol called me from the courthouse steps. I could hear that she had been crying, the kind of crying that is really relief, not grief.
"It is done," she said.
"It is done, and you are mine." I held the phone and looked out her kitchen window at her backyard garden, the tomatoes she grew every year, the bird feeder she filled every morning. "I am yours," I said. "Good," she said. "Good." Life in Grandma Carol's house was different in ways I did not have words for at first. She made breakfast. Not because she had to. Not because she was performing anything. Just because she was up and she was making it, and I was there. She left notes on the refrigerator. Not instructions. Just things. "Emma, the Henderson's bird had babies. Come look when you wake up. Emma, your library book is due Thursday. Emma, I made the pasta you like." Notes that assumed I was there, and that my being there was the point. She came to every school event, not just the big ones. She came to the small, boring ones too. The 5-minute science demonstration. The art show where my drawing was in the back corner. She stood in front of my drawing for a long time and said, "This is really something, Emma." I believed her because she was not saying it at anyone. She was just saying it to me. I started therapy 3 months after moving to Grandma Carol. My therapist was a woman named Dr. Patricia Okafor. She had warm eyes and a calm office with plants everywhere, and she did not rush anything. She gave me space to be angry, which I needed, and space to grieve, which surprised me because I had not thought of it as grief. But it was. It was grief for the parents I had needed and not had. It was grief for the years of making myself small. It was grief for the little girl who had believed that if she was good enough and quiet enough and undemanding enough, love would eventually arrive. Dr. Okafor told me something in our 4th session that I wrote down in a new notebook, a blue one this time. She said, "The things that happen to you are not a reflection of your worth. They are a reflection of your parents' limitations. You were never too much. You were never not enough. You were always exactly enough." I wrote that down. I read it again later that night before bed. I read it again a lot of times after that. 8 months after the arrest, I learned something about my grandmother Eloise, my mother's mother. She had died when I was 5. I barely remembered her, just an impression of softness and something that smelled like lavender. Grandma Carol sat me down and told me that Eloise had set up a savings account in my name, a protected account that my parents could not touch. Grandma Carol worked with the court to have that account formally protected under a trust supervised by the court until I turned 18. The number was not huge, but it was mine. It had been there all along. Grandma Carol held my hand across the table and said, "That was from someone who loved you before you could even know it." I thought about Eloise. I thought about lavender. I thought about people who had tried to protect me even when I did not know I needed protecting. My mother wrote me a letter 18 months after the arrest. It came through Priya, who was still assigned to my case for continuity. Priya handed it to me and said, "You do not have to read it. Not now or ever." I put it in the blue notebook. It stayed there for nearly 4 years. I was 14 when I found it again. I was going through the notebook looking for something else, and the envelope fell out. I sat on my bedroom floor in Grandma Carol's house with the afternoon light coming through the curtains, and I opened it. "Emma," my mother had written. "I do not know how to write this letter. I have started it many times. I am in therapy now for the first time. I thought I did not need it. I know now how wrong that was. I am learning things about myself that are hard to understand. I grew up believing that children were supposed to be self-sufficient. My mother worked constantly, and I spent most of my childhood alone, and I thought that was what childhood was. I thought you were fine the way I had been fine.
I was not fine.
I did not know that. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that what happened was not because you were not enough. It was because I did not know how to be a mother, and I chose my comfort over your safety, and those are things I have to live with. I hope you are well. I hope you are loved. I can tell from what I hear, through Priya, that you are loved by your grandmother. That makes me glad, even though I know I do not have the right to say so.
Mom.
I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. I sat with it for a while. I did not cry. I had done most of my crying in Dr. Okafor's office over the previous 4 years, and there was a certain clarity on the other side of that. What I felt reading the letter was not forgiveness exactly. It was more like setting something down. Like I had been carrying a question for years. Did she know? Did she care? Was any of it real? And the letter was not an answer exactly, but it was the closest thing to one I was ever going to get. I put the envelope back in the notebook. I went downstairs and helped Grandma Carol make dinner. We made pasta. We talked about her garden. It was a regular evening. It was a good one. I am going to tell you the rest quickly because some of it is just time passing, and healing is mostly just time passing with people who love you beside you. I finished middle school with decent grades. I joined the debate team in 9th grade. I was not expecting to love it, but I did. There was something about standing up and saying what you believed and having to defend it with evidence that felt like something I had been practicing for a long time without knowing it. I was good at it.
Yes.
Whitfield had moved schools, but she came to my first tournament. She sat in the back row. She was not surprised when I won. I could tell by the way she nodded. I graduated high school on a warm May morning with Grandma Carol in the front row in a yellow dress with flowers in her lap. Mr. Beaumont came too. He had driven 2 hours. He sat beside her, and they talked the whole ceremony. I could see them laughing at something. I thought about the grocery bags on the porch, the chili, the steady, quiet way he had decided that someone needed to show up, and so he would. I was 17 when my father reached out through a mutual contact, a cousin on his side who had stayed in loose touch with Grandma Carol. He was not asking to see me. He was not making demands. He had written 3 sentences. He said he was sorry. He said he had left my mother 18 months after the arrest. He said he understood if he never heard from me, and that was all right. 3 sentences. I thought about them for a week. Then I wrote 3 back. I said I was doing well. I said I was going to college. I said I hoped he was okay. We have exchanged a few messages since then. Not much, but something. Something that might become more someday, or might stay exactly this size. I am okay with either. I am 18 now. I leave for college in 3 weeks. Full scholarship. I am studying political science, and I have a particular interest in child welfare policy. People sometimes ask if that choice is about what happened to me.
It is.
But not in the way they assume. It is not about revenge. It is about the fact that there are children right now in houses that look perfect from the outside who are rationing crackers and filming themselves in front of empty refrigerators because they do not know who to tell, and they are afraid no one will believe them. I want to spend my life making the systems that are supposed to protect those children actually work. I want to be someone like Priya, someone like Ms. Whitfield, someone like Mrs. Adora, someone who shows up when it matters. The morning before I left for college, I sat on Grandma Carol's back porch with Biscuit, who is old now, very old, moving slowly but still warm and still beside me. I drank coffee, which I had started in 9th grade and Grandma Carol had pretended to disapprove of, and then quietly started buying the good kind for the house. The garden was in full summer. Tomatoes, which she had planted because Mr. Beaumont had given her starts. Sunflowers along the fence. Morning glories on the trellis. I thought about the little girl in the big house with the empty refrigerator. I thought about the green notebook. I thought about pressing record and saying the date out loud because I needed someone to know, even if that someone was just the camera, just the air, just the future self who might someday watch those videos and understand what they had survived. I thought about the things I know now that I did not know then. That silence does not make you safe. It only makes the people who hurt you safer. That needing things is not weakness. That asking for help is not a betrayal of anyone. That you can love a parent and still refuse to lie for them. That family is not about blood or shared last names or the same address. Family is about who feeds you when you are hungry and who shows up at tournaments and who leaves grocery bags on the porch without making a thing of it. My mother sent me a card for my birthday this year.
Just a card.
She did not write much inside, just that she hoped this year was a good one. I put it in the blue notebook with the letter. I have not written back. Maybe someday I will. That is not a promise, and it is not a door closed. It is just where I am right now, and right now is enough. Grandma Carol drove me to campus 3 weeks later. She cried the whole way there and insisted she was not crying, and I said, "Okay, you are not crying," and we both laughed. She helped me carry boxes up 2 flights of stairs. She arranged things on the desk and stood back and looked at the small room with a single window and said, "This is yours. All of it. Your room. Your future. Yours." She hugged me for a long time at the door. She smelled like the lavender lotion she has used my whole life. She pulled back and looked at me and said, "You know I am always a phone call away." "I know," I said.
Good, she said.
And then she went, and I stood in the doorway of my dorm room and watched her go and did not feel abandoned. I felt like someone standing at the beginning of something very large. I went inside. I unpacked. I made my bed. I opened my window and let the late summer air in. My roommate would arrive the next day. I did not know her yet. I did not know any of this yet. But for the first time in a very long time, not knowing felt like possibility instead of danger. I pulled out the blue notebook. I turned to a blank page near the back. I wrote the date at the top. Then I wrote day 1. I am okay.
I ate a full meal.
I have everything I need. I pressed the pen to the page for one more moment and then added, and I know the difference now between someone who loves you and someone who needs you to believe they do. That is not a small thing to know. That might be everything. If you have listened to this entire story, I want to say something to you directly. If you grew up in a house where you were expected to be invisible, where your needs were an inconvenience, where love felt conditional or withheld or always slightly out of reach, you are not alone, and you were not wrong to feel what you felt. The things done to you were not your fault. Your smallness was not a character flaw. It was survival. And survival, when you are a child in a difficult house, is its own kind of strength. Speaking the truth is not betrayal. Protecting yourself is not cruelty. The people who genuinely love you will never ask you to starve for their comfort or lie for their reputation. The people who genuinely love you will show up. They will leave bags on the porch. They will come to the small boring school events. They will drive 2 hours without hesitation. They will say your name like it matters. You deserve that. You always did. And if you are still waiting for it, please know that it exists. Please know that there are Mr. Beaumonts and Ms. Whitfields and Grandma Carols in the world. People who will see you when you have learned to make yourself invisible. People who will ask the right question at the right moment. All you have to do is answer honestly. All you have to do is be willing to tell the truth even when your hands are shaking. My parents left me with $80 and a card they knew did not work. I walked away with a green notebook, 23 videos, and the understanding that the truth, even when it is inconvenient and uncomfortable and devastating to the people who tried to bury it, will always eventually speak for itself. And that when it does, no party and no slideshow and no Instagram caption in the world is enough to keep it quiet. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this story reached something in you, if it reminded you of something you have been carrying, I hope you feel a little less alone tonight. Please follow Whispers of Wisdom so you never miss a story. And remember this: you are allowed to take up space. You always were.